I'm going to show you why you should stop buying expensive premium house soil mixes from the store and instead make your own. You will be shocked at the cost savings and will kick yourself that you didn't start making your own mix sooner, but there are other benefits besides cost too. I'm going to be using Great British Pounds in this video, but the same theory will apply just as much in your area too. There are great savings to be made with my method no matter where you are. I'll add the conversion to US dollars for context whenever I mention costs. The houseplant game is a big one. There are tons of companies just dying to take your hard-earned money off you in exchange for products that are convenient and apparently high quality. Premium soil mixes that you can buy in your local store or online can be super convenient, but they can also be very expensive. Take this houseplant soil mix from Grow Buddha that you can buy on Amazon. This 2-litre bag is currently on sale for $11.99. That's £6 per litre. Wow. Now that's extremely steep, and I'm going to show you why. The marketing for this bag is very clever because it lists lots of fancy ingredients the bag contains that apparently do wonders for your plants. Clay minerals, castor meal, fermented biochar, rock phosphate, humic acid. Fantastic stuff, I'm sure, but also stuff that you can normally find in good quality compost. Looking at the blend of ingredients though, and it's pretty standard stuff. Cocoa coir is the main body, with vermiculite added for water retention, perlite and charcoal for drainage, and volcanic minerals for nutrients. The problem is we're paying such a premium for this mix that can easily be made at home yourself for a fraction of the cost. You're not just paying for the ingredients, but also the convenience of having this mixed for you. Convenience is a big seller in the houseplant world. Let's say you wanted to make this mix yourself, and I'm not saying that you should by the way, and you buy all the individual ingredients separately from Amazon. These are the costs per litre based on what I could find available to be delivered to me. I can buy 50-litre bags of coconut coir for $20.53, which works out to be 41p per litre. Perlite, I can buy a massive 100-litre bag for £29, which is obviously 29p per litre. And by the way, I highly recommend buying perlite in volume this way. It's so much cheaper than buying it in 1-litre containers in the shop. Charcoal is pretty expensive at £3.60 per litre, and so is volcanic minerals at £7.50. Vermiculite can be bought for 52p per litre, quite a bit more expensive than perlite for some reason. To compare the cost to the mix from Grow Buddha, let's say that our 1-litre mix is made up of 40% coconut coir, 20% perlite, 20% charcoal, 15% vermiculite and 5% volcanic minerals. I don't know their blend exactly, but this seems like a pretty sensible ratio. That would make the cost per litre a much more respectable £1.40. That is 4 times cheaper than the premium mix from Grow Buddha. That's already a fantastic saving, but my mix is much cheaper still, and the reason is because I keep mine super simple with just 2 ingredients, compost and perlite. And here's how I make mine before we delve into the costs. So to make my soil mix, I like to come out into my garden because I'm going to be using perlite, and if you've used perlite yourself at home then you'll know that when you handle it, fine dust goes into the air quite readily. It's not good to breathe that in, so I like to come out into an open air environment. You can do it inside if you wanted to, if you don't have the space outside. Just probably need to wear a mask to protect your health a little bit. So I've got perlite, and then I've got just regular multi-purpose compost. So I'll just buy that from my local DIY store or garden centre. Just pick up a decent sized bag, nothing special, just regular compost for the garden. So it's just good dark black compost, lots of nutrients in there. It's good for the plants in your home. So, and I've got my tote box, so this is where I keep my soil for my house plant. So it's empty at the moment, so it needs filling up. So the plan of attack is to kind of make a lasagna box really while I'm doing it, just to make it easier to incorporate it. So I'll have a layer of compost, then I'll do some perlite, and then compost, and then perlite on top. So it just makes it much easier to incorporate rather than just dumping a load of compost and then perlite on top. Makes it difficult to mix. So the first thing, so normally in these bags you get big clumps of compost like that, just to make my life a little bit easier. I kind of get in the bag and just break it up a little bit, and then just going to fill probably about 1/5 of the box to start with. Just break up any large clumps. And then next, I've got my perlite. So that is a large 100 litre bag, I think. It's a massive bag to have in your house, but much more economical than buying the smaller bags that you buy in your local big box stores or whatever. I've got my scooper ready, 2 or 3 scoops probably. So I'll do 5 parts compost, 2 parts perlite. That's my rough mix, but it's not an exact science. So just do a layer of perlite. I think 3 scoops. And then, because it's quite difficult to mix the bottom of the pot of the box when you've got loads of soil in here, just give it a good mix so all the bottom gets incorporated nicely. Don't worry too much if there are parts in here with more compost than perlite and vice versa. Doesn't really matter, all sorts itself out eventually. And that is kind of what you're looking for, a good mix of dark compost with nice white bits of perlite. Looks quite attractive. So at this point, if you wanted to, you could add a bit of fertilizer in there. Wouldn't be a bad thing, but I use water-soluble fertilizer, so I'm not going to bother. So just top up again with compost and repeat the process. Like so. Break up any clumps again. A couple of scoops of perlite. Can feel it tickling the back of my throat. It's probably worth wearing a mask even if you are outside. Can get in there with your hands if you wanted to. It's all part of gardening, just breaking up these clumps of compost. So it makes it much easier to mix the whole box when you do it in layers like this. And just to make sure that I've got a nice full box, it's about 3/4 full at the moment, I'm just going to top up once more with compost and a little bit of perlite. Just so I'm not having to make my mix in a couple of weeks again. This will last a few months, hopefully. Well, a few weeks, I should say. So it's not an exact science, like I say, just roughly 5 parts compost, 2 parts perlite. As long as there's good drainage in here. Okay, then, last step I like to do, get the lid on nice and tight, and then just give it a shake like that. Don't want the lid to come off. That's happened to me before. The lid's come off and it's gone all over my grass. Just to incorporate it nicely. Okay, and that is my soil mix made. And I think that looks very nice indeed. That'll be excellent for your houseplants. The main thing I've come to realise about houseplant care is that it's just not necessary to buy the best soil mix out there. Garden compost has pretty much all the nutrients your plants will need to get them started. As long as you have them on a good fertiliser schedule, they'll be getting everything they need to grow healthy and strong. Volcanic minerals and charcoal are nice to haves, but not really necessary in my experience. So you can buy all-purpose compost from Amazon for 21p per litre. This is the Miracle Grow brand, so I'm pretty sure you can get it cheaper still. Like I said earlier, I buy my perlite in bulk for just 29p per litre. I make a mix of approximately 5 parts compost to 2 parts perlite, so that would make my total cost per litre 23p. Yes, 23p. That's an incredible saving versus the soil from Grow Buddha, and I'm certain would compare very favourably to any pre-made soil mixes you can buy online or in your local store. When you've got a growing collection of plants in your home and you're regularly potting up, the cost savings will really mount up. I guess the one downside to this approach that you're probably thinking about right now is upfront cost and storage. I do understand that it's a fairly significant upfront cost to buy large quantities of each ingredient, and that's a choice you'll have to make yourself. For me though, I much prefer investing some money upfront in the knowledge that I'm making such significant savings in the long run. I mean, 23p versus £6 per litre is such an incredible difference. I'm also choosing not to buy the most expensive ingredients such as the minerals and the charcoal, so the initial investment is less. You're looking at a £30 upfront investment for the compost and perlite to make my mix versus £12 from Grow Buddha for their 2 litre bag. If you wanted all the fancy ingredients that Grow Buddha include, then your initial investment will be £75. Storage can certainly be an issue, especially if you don't have a garden, and to be honest, it is for me. I am able to store my compost in the garden fine, but the large 100 litre bag bag of perlite I buy is more of a challenge because I can't just leave it outside to get rained on and poked around by nosy wild animals. And it's also not good for you to breathe in the fine dust particles, so storing it in the house isn't an option. So I've stuffed it awkwardly in my shed on top of my bag. Not the best solution, particularly because I've punctured a hole in the bag that I've had to tape up, but short-term pain for long-term gain and all that. The great thing about making your own mix is that it's fully customizable to your specific plant needs. If you need a batch with more perlite to increase drainage for succulents, then no problem. You can easily make a small batch for that purpose. If you're finding that your plants are drying out too quickly due to your specific climate, then no problem. You can experiment by adding in more compost or even adding some vermiculite to the mix. Don't take my recipe as gospel. If you want to use coconut coir instead of compost, then absolutely go for it. My recipe is just there to be played with. I like using compost because it has nutrients that are useful to the plant's roots. Coconut coir is relatively inert, meaning it has a low nutrient content. This isn't really a problem if you're adding fertilizer to your plants. Making your own potting soil also allows you to do your bit for the environment. Grow Buddha's mix does contain coconut coir, which is generally considered sustainable, but other mixes will include the dreaded peat moss. Now, there is some debate about whether peat moss is sustainable or not, and I'm not really qualified to say one way or the other, but making your own mix allows you to make this decision for yourself. I use peat-free garden compost in my mix, mainly because we're phasing it out in the UK, but it also warms my heart to know that I'm using a sustainable product in my houseplants. If you make your own compost, then that's even better. The one thing I definitely wouldn't skimp out on is perlite. Perlite is plant gold and such a useful amendment to soil that I would say is an essential ingredient to any soil mix. It keeps soil super light and airy so that water can penetrate easily. Without it, it can easily become waterlogged, and this spells disaster for plants' roots. To really understand why good drainage is so important for your plants, then check out this video here where I water my plant every single day for a month and the surprising result I got at the end. It really does serve as a great lesson to the importance of good soil drainage.